Savitri too awoke among these tribes that hastened to join the brilliant summoner's chant, a narrow movement on time's deep abyss. Life's fragile littleness denies the power. The proud and conscious wideness and the bliss she had brought with her into the human form, the calm delight that waits one's soul to all, the key to the flaming door of ecstasy.
Good morning. So we're reading in Book 1, Canto 1. We've just completed the first section in which the dawn is described. And as I mentioned earlier, that dawn is described in 6 phases, each in about 30 lines each. So the light in each phase is growing. So they differ in different respects, but you can kind of see a transition at each segment of about 30 lines. So after this section, Savitri is described. And I thought, as a kind of introduction to this reading and also to the poem in general, I wanted to read a little bit about the legend of Savitri as it occurred in the Mahabharata. And I wanted to look at how Savitri was described in that tale of the Mahabharata. And I didn't really find such a good rendering of that. But I found this other segment from Deshpande about the legend of Savitri. And he describes how Savitri was kind of interpreted or taken up in later ages from that story. But he describes her in the context of the overall story and in its rendering in the Mahabharata. So I'll describe a little bit about that legend. And it's kind of a good introduction also, I think, to the poem as a whole. So it's about a page and a half or so. So here it begins. When did Vyasa compose his Savitri story? Sri Aurobindo remarks that it belongs to the poet's early days, still fresh with the glow of the youth and grace over it. It looks as though the later compilers of the Mahabharata neatly incorporated the tale in the main sequel of the great epic. It does certainly fit in very well in one of the story sessions we have in the Book of the Forest, where the Pandavas stayed as exiles in the woods. The meter in which the poem is composed is mostly anushtuba, and there are exactly 300 shlokas or 600 hemishtiks covering the entire story. A sloka is an unrhymed Sanskrit couplet of 32 syllables in 4 equal divisions. So 600 lines, the whole tale takes place, whereas Sri Aurobindo's is a little under 24,000. Right? Vyasya's recitation of Savitri in this meter moves forward with epic grace and swiftness, rushing from event to event with confident ease. Divided in 7 sections, this little heroic poem has metrical power to win back the word of truth from the inconsiderate and suffocating darkness of death. Savitri, the princess of Madra, is of course the most important character in the story. The other persons present are Savitri's parents, Aswapati and Malawi. Then there is the heavenly sage Narad, who pays a purposeful visit to Aswapati at a most crucial juncture in the life of Savitri. This happens when she is about to disclose to her parents her choice of marrying Satyavan. Satyavan, his mother Shaibya, and blind father Dyumatsena, once the ruler of the Shalwa country, are staying as exiles in the forest. In the forest, there are sages and learned ascetics engaged in holy spiritual practices, one prominent and well-respected among them being the sage Gautama. Yama, or the god of death, is at once frightfully dark and kind gracious in the benignity of the upholder of the order of the worlds. Princess Savitri's own birth was in response to Aswapati's prayer to the goddess Savitri, who incarnated herself as his daughter in fulfillment of the exceptional boon granted to him through her by the creator father Brahma himself. A cosmic transcendental dimension is thus already set in the story, narrated as a simple human tale belonging to early times. The Pandavas have lost the game of dice and have been ordered to live for 12 years in a forest. This is to be followed by 1 year of living incognito. It is towards the end of this 12-year period that Rishi Markandeya visits the Pandavas again, and in response to the query of Yudhishthira, which is Arjuna's brother, one of the 5 Pandavas, narrates to him the story of Savitri. Yudhishthira's puzzlement is simple. He knows that noble Draupadi, the common wife of the 5 Pandavas, is chaste and virtuous, born as she was in the purity of the sacrificial flame. Yet in life, she is seen to face most difficult hardships and suffer humiliation at the hands of the evil-minded. Virtue always seems to be helpless against the harshness of life and is ever afflicted, as if it were incompatible with it. But the Rishi assures the desolate that in the manner of Savitri, the disgraced shall, by her great womanly power, the power of chastity, prove to be a fortune bringer to them. Savitri had suffered greatly for her husband's sake and won from Yama, the king father lord himself, noble boons, including the exceptional boon of winning back Satyavan's life. Through the Savitri example, which he prefers to give to Yudhishthira, Markandeya is actually holding out a splendid promise for the Pandavas. With this preliminary background begins the remarkable narration. And here he kind of refers to how Savitri was kind of interpreted and taken in later times. But does the story speak of the ideal of womanhood only in the context of building up a healthy society? Is such a woman just a desirable and genial archetype, a beau ideal? Has the whole concept been put forward, particularly as an ethical, self-righteous view to emphasize upon the laity and the common people to adopt and follow a fixed set of rules of conduct, a set of commandments to govern their daily life? In the face of life's severe contradictions, where often virtue not only goes unrewarded, but seems to be punished, does it merely try to din into our ears the efficiency of the Dharma, in spite of these 1,000 evils which we have to encounter every day? Is the alleviation of grief and suffering the main intention behind the narration? Are the examples of Sita, Savitri, and Damayanti proclaimed and upheld by Vivekananda even today any more relevant, appropriate enough in the modern unavoidable circumstances? Are they secular in character? So then he argues, no, that there is kind of a deeper significance behind it, but I won't go into that. And we will see in this portion that we begin reading today, Sri Aurobindo's view of Savitri kind of in this deeper sense of what she represents. So with that, let's begin reading. And maybe we'll start this side with Helmut today. So we are on page 6 at the break.
And Savitri too awoke amongst these tribes that hastened to join the brilliant summoner's chant, and, lured by the beauty of the apparent ways, acclaimed their portion of ephemeral joy. Akin to the eternity whence she came, no part she took in this small happiness. A mighty stranger in the human field, the embodied guest within made no response. The call that wakes the leap of human mind, its checkered, eager motion of pursuit, its fluttering, hued illusion of desire, visited her heart like a sweet alien note. Time's message of brief light was not for her. In her, there was the anguish of the gods, imprisoned in our transient human mold, the deathless conquered by the death of things. A vaster nature's joy had once been hers, but long could keep not its gold heavenly hue, or stand upon this brittle earthly base. A narrow movement on time's deep abysm, life's fragile littleness denied the power, the proud and conscious whiteness and the bliss she had brought with her into the human form. the calm delight that weds one soul to all, the key to the flaming doors of ecstasy. Earth's grain that needs the sap of pleasure and tears rejected the undying rapture spoon, offered to the daughter of infinity her passion flower of love, and doom she gave.
Thank you. Let's pause there. So we see hints here that Savitri, represents something of perhaps an incarnation of the Divine Mother, certainly some kind of divinity that she has brought down. In the first lines, we see her waking up with the peoples, hastening to join the brilliant summoner's chant. I was wondering, what is the summoner? But Shraddhavan suggests the sun. So the sun has risen, and it's kind of calling people to the daily activities. And these daily activities, the beauty of the apparent ways. What? Huh? I'm not understanding what you're saying. So, apparent ways, just the ways of life, the activities of daily life. Apparent, because this is how we see things on the surface of life. The obvious kind of ways of life. Acclaimed. We could say claimed. They, looked for their portion of happiness. Huh? Yeah. You make a claim, you take for yourself. But this was not for Savitri. And then here he's kind of alluding to her divinity, or at least her greatness, akin to the eternity whence she came. So she's come from eternity. No part she took in this small happiness, these kind of apparent ways. For her, she was like a mighty stranger in the human field. The embodied guest within made no response. And this capitalization of guest also suggests this divinity within her.
So the embodied guest is her soul?
Yeah, we could say that, or the divinity, the divine mother is within her. He doesn't say that yet, but as we go, we'll see it more. So then he describes kind of our common life, these apparent ways, the call that wakes the leap of human mind, its checkered, eager motion of pursuit, its fluttering hued illusion of desire, visited her heart like a sweet alien note. So she doesn't respond to these desires and surface attractions of life. Time's message of brief light was not for her. And then we see something of the ordeal to come. Like a checkered board, kind of black and white mixed. So when something is checkered, it's kind of mixed light and darkness combined. Yeah. Like different colors, flashing different colors, something attracting us. These desires, you know, like.
It's a picture of movement and color gathering.
Yes. So in her, there was the anguish of the gods, imprisoned in our transient human mold, the deathless conquered by the death of things. So she felt that contrast between her inner divinity and this outer mold, this outer body of flesh and mind and life. And then he alludes to her vaster being, her vaster nature, and its joy had once been hers, but could not keep its gold heavenly hue or stand upon this brittle earthly base. So she had brought with her this perhaps golden light of the supermind or of the divine above, but when she descended into the physical body, she could not kind of keep that. Life's fragile littleness denied the power, the proud and conscious wideness and the bliss she had brought with her into the human form.
Would you say, you see, this is the context that you need, because this is the day that Dr. Bhavan is going to die. So she's waking up on that day.
Right.
And so waking up on that day, she hasn't had the experience yet of going into the other world, and so she's still stuck with the problem of the death.
Right.
That's what was described.
Yeah, she's still facing all of that ordeal yet. She's been living with the foreknowledge of his impending death, with the grief of that.
The 1 year is up.
Yeah.
Now she has to face it.
Mm.
So now she's, let's say, responding to a certain extent.
Well, right. I mean, she's the Divine Mother, but she's in this physical body, and she can't uphold that light and that power at this point yet. But it says something in these next lines, especially about the earth nature also. Earth's grain that needs the sap of pleasure and tears, rejected the undying rapture's boon. So our nature, our fallen nature, tends to reject that divine boon, that divine grace that's there, come down to help us, to liberate us.
But that's not enough for her.
No. This offered to the daughter of infinity, it offered her passion flower of love, and doom she gave. It offered her love, but together with this doom of Satyavan's death. Yeah, the kind of fallen consciousness of Earth offers love together with doom. Here to Savitri, especially to the incarnate divine. And then we'll see in the next passage a little bit more of that incarnate divine alluded to more specifically. So let's continue.
In vain now seemed the splendid sacrifice, a prodigal of her rich divinity, herself and all she was, she had lent to men, hoping her greater being to implant, and in their bodies' lives acclimatize that heaven might native grow on mortal soil. Hard is it to persuade earth's nature's change. Mortality bears ill the eternal's touch. It fears the pure divine intolerance of that assault of ether and of fire. It murmurs at its sorrowless happiness, almost with hate repels the light it brings. It trembles at its naked power of truth and the might and sweetness of its absolute voice. Inflicting on the heights the abysmal law, it sullies with its Maya heaven's messengers. Its thorns of fallen nature are the defense. It turns against the Saviour's hands of grace. It meets the sons of God with death and pain. A glory of lightnings traversing the earth scene, their sun thoughts fading, darkened by ignorant minds, their work betrayed, their good to evil turned, the cross, their payment for the crown they gave. Only they leave behind a splendid name. A fire has come and touched men's hearts and gone. A few have caught flame and risen to greater life.
Okay, thank you. Let's pause. So we saw in that first part something of the divinity that she brought with her into the physical body. In this section, we see something more of her mission, of why she has come into the physical body. So it says, herself and all she was, she had lent to men, hoping her greater being to implant, and in their bodies, lives, acclimatize, that heaven might native grow on mortal soil. So that we could also say was kind of the mission of Sri Aurobindo and Mother, that they also came to do that work. Savitri has also come for that purpose. And then it alludes back to our human nature, how it rejects the divine influence. Hard is it to persuade earth nature's change. Mortality bears ill the eternal's touch. It fears the pure divine intolerance of that assault of ether and of fire. It murmurs at its sorrowless happiness. Almost with hate repels the light it brings. It trembles at its naked power of truth and the might and sweetness of its absolute voice. And one of the things that's sometimes alluded to in the poem is how the divine messengers have come and gone so many times. They bring the light, but it's rejected, or it fades, its influence wanes over some time, and its effects always have been limited. We've had so many avatars come and saints and sages bringing great teachings, but somehow earth remains this field of suffering and pain. So
You said that earth remains. It's not to understand how difficult these processes or not.
yeah, there's behind that rejection of the human being, of the human nature to the divine, is the fact that, we're evolving here in a world that's started from the inconscient, from an absolute absence of consciousness or delight or power, strength. We come from a position of weakness. So we're come through this long course of evolution. With that at its basis, we're struggling out of that towards the light, towards the embodied divine life here. And that darkness kind of waking up to this divine light, it's painful, or it's too bright for us to handle. So we avert our eyes, we turn away. It sullies with its mire heaven's messengers. Its thorns of fallen nature are the defense it turns against the Savior hands of grace. It meets the sons of God with death and pain. And here he alludes more specifically to Christ, which is kind of a perfect symbol of this rejection of the divine and the crucifixion of Christ on the cross. And then a glory of lightnings traversing the earth scene. So these lightnings are, the lightnings of this higher knowledge that these various sages and saints have brought. Their sun thoughts fading, darkened by ignorant minds. So even the light they bring, the knowledge they bring, tends to get encrusted into dogmas and kind of cheapened and reduced in its power and truth. Their work betrayed, their good to evil turned, the cross their payment for the crown they gave. Only they leave behind a splendid name. Kind of an ironic statement, but maybe sadly true. We have these great names of the avatars and saints and sages, but we don't know too much else about them. And then a fire has come and touched men's hearts and gone. A few have caught flame and risen to greater life. So they've come to bring light to the world, but only a few are really genuinely touched and uplifted. The mass remain fallen behind. Let's continue.
Too unlike the world she came to help and save, her greatness weighed upon its ignorant breast, and from its dim chasms welled a dire return, a portion of its sorrow, struggle, fall. To live with grief, to confront death on her road, the mortal's lot became the immortal's share. Thus trapped in the gin of earthly destinies, awaiting her ordeal's hour abode, outcast from her inborn felicity, accepting life's obscure terrestrial robe, hiding herself even from those she loved, the Godhead greater by a human fate. A dark foreknowledge separated her from all whom she was the star and stay, too great to implant the peril and the pain. In her torn depths, she kept the grief to come. As one who, watching over men left blind, takes up the load of an unwitting race, harboring a foe whom with her heart she must feed. Unknown her act, Unknown the doom she faced, unhelped, she must foresee and dread and dare. The long foreknown and fatal morn was here, bringing a noon that seemed like every noon. For nature walks upon her mighty way, unheeding when she breaks a soul, a life, leaving her slain behind. She travels on, man only marks, and God's all-seeing eyes. Even in this moment of her soul's despair, in its grim rendezvous with death and fear, no cry broke from her lips, no call for aid. She told the secret of her woe to none. Calm was her face, and courage kept her mute.
Thank you. Let's pause. So we had seen something of Savitri's divinity, then we saw something of her mission, why she has embodied in a human form on earth, that heaven might native grow on mortal soil. And now we're introduced to something of the story of the issue that she faces, which is described in more length in the next canto. But this issue of Satyavan's death. So here it's kind of hinted at. But in the beginning, in the first lines, again, we're just shown that this divinity that she is deep within, she's embodied in this human form, and because of this human form, out of that comes something to her, a portion of its sorrow, struggle, fall. So she feels all of those obstacles of physical life, including death and suffering. She also has to face that. to live with grief, to confront death on her road. The mortal's lot became the immortal share. So she too has to face these problems of human life, thus trapped in the jinn of earthly destinies. This jinn is a kind of a mechanical device or a trap. So she's caught in these earthly destinies, awaiting her ordeals, our abode, the home of her decisive hour when she must confront death. And here we see she's outcast from her inborn felicity, thrust into this physical life, physical body. She's lost that inner happiness. She's accepted life's obscure terrestrial robe. And then something, beautiful line, the Godhead greater by a human fate. Huh? Okay, so she's outcast from her inner happiness. Felicity is happiness. That divinity that she's brought with her into the physical form. Huh? She's outcast from it. She doesn't feel it. From that inner happiness. So she's thrust into the jinn of earthly destinies, into this mechanism or this trap of earthly fate in which she has to confront suffering and death. So for the moment, at least, she's outcast from her inner happiness. She's caught in this outer pain and suffering.
What is the origin of this word?
I don't know the origin, but yeah, but that's, I guess, what it means.
Because the only meaning I knew was to know the origin.
Yeah.
But not.
Yeah, I don't know if that's related to this meaning or not. Yeah, it's like a trap.
It's more like a machine.
Yeah, I was thinking whether they use engine, right? Yeah. Do they make it with some kind of machine? I don't know. Oh, the genie. You're saying genie.
Well, this is a diversion. We shouldn't go there.
Yeah, I don't think that's the same. But the Godhead greater by a human fate. So there's something about that. I mean, there's the Godheads above in heaven, and then there's the Godheads that descend into an earthly body on earth in order to help uplift the world. And that's a greater divinity. That's a greater Godhead than those that stay up above all this suffering and pain and don't confront it. But then we have here the allusion specifically to Savitri's ordeal in this life. First, a dark foreknowledge separated her from all of whom she was the star and stay. She has the foreknowledge of Satyavan's impending death, and she's kept that within herself, separate from his parents, from Satyavan. She hasn't told anyone about this.
What does to stay mean?
A support. She is their support. Too great to impart the peril and the pain, in her torn depths she kept the grief to come. And then there's these kind of poignant lines, I don't know, maybe alluding to something that the ordeal of the avatar, I think, as one who watching over men left blind, takes up the load of the unwitting race. So that's what the avatar does. Takes up the load of the human race who are unaware of his presence or help, harboring a foe with whom with her heart she must feed. The avatar takes in the difficulties of humanity. Yeah. In Sri Aurobindo's time, men was often used to refer to men and women or humanity in general. Language changed a little bit after that. It became sexist to refer just to men in that way. But that was the common way to do it. And you see it quite a bit throughout Sri Aurobindo's writings.
This line of Canto saying to feed a snake in one room.
To feed a snake in one's room. Okay, I don't know that. But yeah, we get a sense of this, I mean, harboring a foe. I mean, sometimes these saints have to take in enemies, you know, who our mother was in relation with various asuras in her life. And so she also lived with them, suffered them with the aim of converting, of changing them. And then again, another allusion to Savitri, Satyavan's death. The long forenoon and fatal morn was here, bringing a noon that seemed like every noon. We find out later that it is at noon that he leaves his body.
Because he just woke up, so he's
Right.
got 3 hours left until death he has to face.
Mm-hmm.
So then our whole year of waiting is pressing on her.
Right.
That's why all this is coming home.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, she's facing it very powerfully, strongly from this morning. Excuse me, a little louder. Right. Because she's there to transform that suffering and transform that, let's say, that part in humanity that goes against the divine light, that rejects the divine light, that rebels against it. How are you going to change humanity unless you deal with that? That obstacle within humanity that even will crucify the avatar who comes, who dares to try to change humanity and bring light here.
The important thing, of course, is that this applies to each individual. You see, this is not just Savitri. Every soul, every one of us,
Yeah.
has to face the same situation. We're hid within, and all those people are out there. We have to face this.
So elaborate a little more how do we face it?
Yeah, well, that's what he's going to tell you for 24,000 miles.
Oh, okay. But you're referring to us in general.
Yeah, us in particular.
Aurovillians in particular?
All of us.
All of us. Okay.
You can't escape. Nobody can escape.
This.
She's doing it for us.
Okay. We all have to confront that adversary force.
I think there's also guidance when it's there and we all calm and okay.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's Sri Aurobindo offers that advice about how to face that adversary, the difficulties of life, of human nature. Stand back, be calm, call the Divine Mother to remove the obstacles.
But the foe is each one of us. The foe.
The foe is in each one of us. So nature walks upon her mighty way, unheeding when she breaks a soul, a life. Leaving her slain behind, she travels on. Man only marks, and God's all-seeing eyes. So we see the fallen as nature moves on. We grieve the dead. And God watches. Marks makes notices, you could say, notices. You might take it in a more literal sense. He puts a marker on the dead body that's buried in the earth. So for Savitri, in her grim rendezvous with death and fear, no cry broke from her lips, no call for aid. She told the secret of her woe to none. Calm was her face, and courage kept her mute. And it makes me think of Mother and Sri Aurobindo too, how the suffering that they must have carried within them and yet didn't really announce it, make a big thing of it to the people around. Mother notes it on Sri Aurobindo's Samadhi, the suffering that he endured, but she also endured much more, which Sri Aurobindo also noted about Mother. So let's continue.
Yet only her outward self suffered and strove. Even her humanity was half divine. Her spirit opened to the spirit in all. Her nature felt all nature as its own. Apart, living within, all lives she bore. Aloof, she carried in herself the world. Her dread was one with the great cosmic dread. Her strength was founded on the cosmic mights. The universal mother's love was hers. Against the evil all life's afflicted roots, her own calamity its private sign. Of her pangs she made a mystic poignant sword, a solitary mind, a worldwide heart. To the lone immortal's unshared work she rose. At first life grieved not in her burdened breast. On the lap of earth's original somnolence, inert released into forgetfulness. Prone, it reposed, unconscious on mind's verge, obtuse and tranquil like the stone and star. In a deep cleft of silence twixt two realms, she lay remote from grief, unsown by care. Nothing recalling of this sorrow here. Then a slow, faint remembrance, shadow-like moved, and sighing she laid her hand upon her bosom, and recognizing the close and lingering ache, deep, quiet, old, made natural to its place, but knew not why it was there nor whence it came. The power that kindles mind was still withdrawn. Heavy, unwilling were life's servitors. Like workers with no wages of delight, sullen the torch of sense refused to burn. The unassisted brain found not its past, only a vague earth nature held the frame.
Thank you. Let's pause there. So in the first part of this passage, Sri Aurobindo describes again something of her divinity. and especially her cosmic consciousness, which unites her with all others. So he says, so he begins, yet only her outward self suffered and strove. So her outer being partook in this humanity with its suffering and pain, but inwardly she was something more. Even her humanity was half divine. And then inwardly, her spirit opened to the spirit in all. Her nature felt all nature as its own. Apart, living within, all lives she bore. Aloof, she carried in herself the world. Makes us think of Sri Aurobindo, in a sense, living in his room, isolated, but yet bearing in his own consciousness all of humanity, all of its suffering. Yeah. And then her dread was one with the great cosmic dread. Her strength was founded on the cosmic mights. The universal mother's love was hers. So here he explicitly refers to the Divine Mother, the Universal Mother's love that she embodied. But it also kind of says something about the nature of avatarhood and with that cosmic consciousness in which they hold within their being all the cosmos with all its history and its problems and its difficulties. They hold all of that within themselves, are one with it, one with the world. Yeah, in that sense, no, he wasn't. Only physically. Sri Aurobindo was not isolated because he was united with all. And then it says something powerful about, Savitri, but also about the avatar in general. Her own calamity, its private sign. So here, Savitri's own calamity, her own predicament, her own suffering and grief, this foreknowledge of Satyavan's impending death. So that's kind of the private sign that she has of this universal suffering, this universal pain that she has to bear. And of that suffering and pain, what does she do? She made a mystic, poignant sword. So she uses it as a weapon to confront, to pierce through that pain and suffering, to conquer it. To the lone immortal's unshared work she rose. To the work of the divine avatar. And then the rest of the passage changes now in subject and tone. And it begins describing Savitri's awakening on the morning in very kind of minute segments or moments as she is just starting to become awake. So we see, at first, life grieved not in her burdened breast. So as she begins to wake, she doesn't feel this grief yet. Inert, on the lap of earth's original somnolence, inert, released into forgetfulness, prone it reposed, unconscious on mind's verge. So her mind is not yet awakened, only she's still kind of inert in her physical body consciousness. Obtuse and tranquil like the stone and star. Still inert, still kind of in the physical. Obtuse, yeah, you could say, I think it means that. No point. But yeah, kind of, yeah, very ignorant, unthinking, yeah, no thought. Dense, you could say. Dense. In a deep cleft of silence twixt two realms, she lay remote from grief, unsawn by care, nothing recalling of the sorrow here. I don't know, I guess that deep cleft of silence is between waking and sleep. So she's still not feeling the grief, the pain yet. Then a slow, faint remembrance, shadow-like moved, and sighing, she laid her hand upon her bosom and recognized the close and lingering ache, deep, quiet, old, made natural to its place. So then, something of that pain and suffering that she's been carrying with her for this past year, this foreknowledge of Satyavan's death, she feels it again. But still knows not why it was there, nor whence it came. She just feels the pain. She doesn't, her mind is still not working, recognizing why it's there. The power that kindles mind was still withdrawn. Heavy, unwilling were life's servitors, like workers with no wages of delight. Sullen the torch of sense refused to burn. The unassisted brain found not its past. Only a vague earth nature held the frame. Still her mind is not awakened. She is now kind of feeling the pain, but she doesn't know why it's there. So let's read this last. Yeah, it's the just moment by moment awakening here. Just in these first few, in the seconds, it's awakening, where we're still physical consciousness is not fully awakened, mind is not still aware. But let's read this last section. I think so. I think you're next, no?
Only a vague earth nature held the frame, but now she stirred, her life shared the cosmic load. At the summons of her body's voiceless call, her strong, far-winging spirit traveled back to the yoke of ignorance and fate, back to the labor and stress of mortal days, lighting a pathway through strange symbol dreams, across the ebbing of the sea of sleep. Her house of nature felt an unseen sway, illumined. How do you say illumined?
Illumined.
Or mind?
Illumined.
Mind or illumined?
Illumined.
Illumined. Swiftly, where were life's darkened rooms, and memory's casements opened on the hours, and the tired feet of thought approached her doors. All came back to her, earth and love and doom. The ancient disputants encircled her like giant figures wrestling in the night. The godheads from the dim inconscient born awoke to struggle and the pang divine. And in the shadow of her flaming heart, at the somber center of the dire debate, a guardian of the unconsoled abyss, inheriting the long agony of the globe, a stone still figure of high and godlike pain, stared into space with fixed, regardless eyes that saw grief's timeless depths but not life's goal. Afflicted by his harsh divinity, bound to his throne, he waited unappeased the daily oblation of her unwept tears, all the fierce question of man's hours relieved, the sacrifice of suffering and desire, earth offers to the immortal ecstasy, began again beneath the eternal hand. Awake, she endured the moment's serene march, and looked on this green, smiling, dangerous world, and heard the ignorant cry of living things. Amid the trivial sounds, the unchanging scene, her soul arose, confronting time and fate. Immobile in herself, she gathered force. This was the day when Satyavan must die.
Thank you. Now, I think we're kind of just about out of time, and this particular passage seemed just really packed full of significance and images and profound truths that I don't think we can cover it in like 2 minutes. So why don't we save it for next time? And so instead we'll start with the music.
That's a good point because he has to summarize the whole year.
Yeah, but he brings in this whole cosmic significance of this issue. Mm.
I think that's also the guidance for all of us, try to develop this one.
Mhm.
That is, yeah.
Yeah, even her humanity was half divine, he says. So, yeah, we have this inner divinity within us. We have our soul. We have our inner being more turned to the light, and we have this outer nature still turned outward to the fluttering hued desires of the world. And we have to reconcile these two.
At the summons of her body's voiceless call, her strong, far-winged spirit traveled back to the yoke of ignorance and fate, back to the labor and stress of mortal days, lighting a pathway through strange symbol dreams across the ebbing of the seas of sleep.
Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.